Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps agencies streamline their proposals in the cloud and get faster sign-off.
Welcome to the second episode of Agencies Drinking Beer, a podcast where we chat with an agency owner, learn valuable lessons, and get a buzz on. Today we're talking with Scott Oldford from Infinitus Marketing about how to earn recurring revenue in your agency, getting through hard times, and how to network effectively. Okay, well, let's kick this off.
Yes, I look forward to speaking with Scott. I met Scott many, many years ago, and it's really great to see his progress.
I love the acting because we already recorded his interview, but I appreciate you keeping...
Well, you know, come on. Gotta keep it real.
It's okay. How's your day going so far?
It's going all right.
You said you were tired.
Yeah, I didn't sleep well last night, but I'm all right. They have free Red Bull here at Voltus, so it's keeping me ticking.
Yeah. I almost got involved in a scuffle this morning. I didn't tell you this.
Road rage?
No, I was walking here to the
Walk
office.
rage?
There was two hobos fighting. And I was walking in their direction, and when I saw the fight break out, I didn't know what to do, so I just sort of stood there. They looked like they were going to hit each other. So
you felt inclined to break it up?
Well, they weren't hitting each other. I was kind of just hovering around. I didn't want to walk through them because I thought I might get as a Cape Brettoner would say, a puck in the mouth.
Oh.
I didn't want to get punched on my way here.
So you didn't choose to walk around them, though? You couldn't have gone across the street?
I could have, but then I would have had to backtrack because there wasn't a crosswalk there. So I was kind of stuck there for what felt like hours. It was about 15 seconds.
Kyle
They were
Rocky,
yelling at
hobo
each other.
Fighter.
I didn't know what to do.
Interesting.
But they were angry. Calling each other liars and stuff. It was bad. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you made it alive.
It's
Isn't easy.
hard. It's not easy. We're going to try a couple... I'm sure we're going to be playing with the format of this podcast as we go. We're still kind of in the early days. But one thing I wanted to try is doing a top 3 blog posts of the week. I read a lot of blog posts. It's probably why I don't get enough, reading done. I've got a stack of books next to my bed that I should be reading, and I don't. Because I spend a lot of time in my Feedly looking at blog posts, kind of seeing what's out there. There's a lot of great content, and I thought maybe highlighting 3 posts every week of kind of what was the best, the most helpful, and sharing those with us.
Fantastic. Great idea.
So the first post I want to talk about is actually one by Dan Martell. Dan Martell is a really fascinating guy. I won't get too much into him, but he's an angel investor and runs a startup called Clarity, where it's kind of like a two-sided marketplace between experts and people who want answers. So it's kind of cool. So he had a post this week called 3 Strategies to Building a Marketplace Startup. And some people want to build these two-sided marketplaces. They want to be the next eBay, or even when you think of Uber or Lyft or any of those car sharing or those ride startups, that they really are a two-sided marketplace. And so he talks about how it's one of the hardest startups to build because it's like having twins. You've got to have the supply and the demand, and you've got to kind of manage them almost as entirely separate customers, the people providing the service and the people who want it. But I'm not gonna paraphrase his blog post because you can go and read it. It's going to be in the show notes. But just one point that I thought that was really interesting is he talked about how to focus on cracking the customer demand. Because if you had a two-sided marketplace, it's like people don't know where to start. Do you start with demand or do you start with supply? And so he goes into talking about how basically you start with the demand, and if you have demand, the supply will follow. So if you have people who want something, if you have enough people who want something, you're going to be able to find people to fill that need. And he even talks about faking supply at the beginning. So he talked about how Uber, in the early days, they didn't have drivers signed up to give people rides, so they ended up hiring a black car service to drive people around. And once they got that demand up for people wanting rides through their app, then they could get people to actually fill that.
Interesting.
So that was one post, and then the other one I thought this is kind of close to our heart. I at the expense of sounding like a broken record, I've been a guest on Jason Swink's podcast talking about building in-house products when you run an agency, and written a blog post, and I kind of talk about it a lot because I think it's something a lot of agency owners want to do. They want to build an internal product, and it's really, as we know, it's really hard because that's how Proposify started, was as a side project in our agency Headspace. So there's a post called How and Why to Make Side Projects Work at a Digital Agency, written by Danny Bluestone, his post on Smashing Magazine. And interesting kind of thoughts there, because what they talk about is how they built a side project called UX Companion. It was like a mobile app, and they do side projects, I think, for a different reason than we did. I think we were very serious at the beginning about wanting to build a business, and maybe, I don't know, maybe almost trying too hard too fast to make it into a business before it was there. But what they talk about is how they do it kind of as a R&D kind of thing. Like, they block off about 20% of their time to work on side projects, but they they kind of use it as an excuse to learn new technology and to kind of produce really cool things for their portfolio that then they can go and show another client and say, see what we did. So they talk about, how they built this UX Companion, which was kind of like an app glossary of UX terms, and then they had other clients come to them who were like, oh, well, we need one of those for our industry. Can you build that for us? So it wasn't so much that they wanted to like make a lot of money off of the app. It was just more of a way for them to really learn new technology and produce something really cool that they could show off.
Nice. That sounds similar to Mike Ashey's project. Different world, of course, but when he did that awesome technology that around the Mooseheads game, remember that? Mm. And they got a lot of business out of that. It's good to do things on spec. I mean, we obviously, like you said, we were also gluttons for punishment because we actually had, I think, 3 products on the go at one time. Yeah. But anyways, no, it's interesting.
Well, and the other thing that they talk about this in this post is that they still do, upfront like customer development, and they do user personas and stuff. So they want to make sure that even though it's just a side project and they're not banking on it being successful, they still make sure that it's something people would want. So they put that time into making sure they're building something worthwhile. Okay, so the other post was about firing. Never a fun thing.
No.
So this was a post written by Alex Turnbull, who's the CEO of Groove. They're a customer support application that we actually use for our company, customer support. So the Groove post is called "Firing: How I Do the Hardest Thing as an Entrepreneur," and that kind of brought back some memories. Thankfully, we've never had to fire anybody at Proposify. We've got an awesome team, but I'm sure as we grow, it's just something that every entrepreneur faces. And we did do it a few times at Headspace.
Yes.
I counted 4 times. That's what I seem to remember. But
yeah, a couple of them, I hate to use the word firing. It sounds, so dramatic.
Yeah, letting go
is
the
but I think a couple of them we're still friends with. It just was one of those things where we just it just wasn't the right fit on both sides. And then, of course, yes, we did have to fire a couple of people that just weren't pulling their weight. And it is hard. Mm-hmm. And, one instance, I remember there were some tears involved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we become friendly with with them and with our employees, and we consider them friends, and we all work towards a common goal. And then when things change or you have to let someone go, it's difficult.
Well, what Alex talks about in the post is that for him, it's usually not about skill. It's not that they don't have the skill to do the job. It's just that there's not much of a cultural fit, and he thinks that like sometimes their personal goals don't align with where the company will take them. One thing that he talks about as a way that they can kind of overcome needing to fire people after they're already started is it's like a non-negotiable thing. They do a trial every time they hire somebody new. They do a paid consulting gig that's like a month. They pay them for it. They work in the team, so it's basically like they start the job, but they know up front that this isn't a job offer. This is a paid consulting gig, and at the end of it, we'll evaluate and see how it goes. So he talks about giving them feedback through that period, so that when the end of their month comes along, they can go, they can sit down and have that conversation and see, like, is this a place you want to work? Do we want to work with you, kind of thing. But it's never easy.
No, it isn't.
Feels, I don't know. I think like so many, especially if you're not a business owner, I think a lot of people think of that, stereotypical like TV boss, like Montgomery Burns or something that just like gets off on firing people. But I would say probably for the majority of business owners, it's gut-wrenching.
Yes.
You're taking away somebody's livelihood in a sense. I mean, I'm sure they'll move on and get another job, but at least for a short period of time, you're taking somebody's paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard right beforehand too. When you have to go in and have that talk, that's the worst feeling.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just right in the gut.
It's like that. It's like the feeling of like breaking up with somebody.
Yeah.
But anyway, not to get too down.
No, but great posts. We love Groove, by the way. They always have great blog posts, and we love their application. It really helps us out.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to get into our interview now with Scott Oldford, and enjoy. All right, well, just a heads up, because we are seasoned professionals at podcasting, we actually messed up the first part of this interview. So we're actually going to come in just a little bit after we start talking to Scott about what it was like starting out in his own business as a teenager.
Someone was like, "Oh my God, you're an amazing entrepreneur," and at this point, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I was just doing my thing, and then I won all these awards, top 20 under 20, and all these different types of things. Everybody kept telling me how good I am, and what do you know? By the time I'm 19, I have an ego big enough, never to be able to get inside a door of anywhere. Very self-centered. All the typical, I'll say, entrepreneurial traits. And that was probably the beginning of the failures that I went through afterwards. And without going into great detail, there's definitely lots of podcasts out there where I go into detail of the failure side. But I went through 3 specific failures, found myself in almost $750,000 in debt by 2013 after having no debt and plenty of money in the bank. Just a few years before. And that's when I started Infinitus, which was, I started working on it in June of 2013. And I had all the web side. I had all the, I'll say the strategy side. I understood that very well being in there. And then I brought some people in that understood the marketing side, better than I did and understood the strategy even better than I did. And launched Infinitus in October 2013. We did just under $1 million in the first year, which was pretty cool. And that's what I spend my days doing right now. Is between that and podcast and a few other things, but that's really what I'm focused on. Is now kind of looking back on it, because like I literally had to sell everything in my house to get like $12,000, like cash in air miles for like gas cards and grocery Sobeys cards. And, now it's kind of like looking back and it was like, man, that is a cool story. But at the time it was just like, you just do what you have to do to survive, right?
And it's not fun when you're going through it. That's for sure.
No. Well, you're just kind of like, what did I do to end up here? You know what I mean? Like when I was 16 or 17, I was just in such a great position. And then bam, I just went in a complete down spiral for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's part of a bigger issue with just the nature of being in a service business. I mean, it's not just limited to service businesses, because obviously startups fail at an incredible rate, product companies and that sort of thing. But I think the hard thing with a service business is like, okay, if you go and build a startup and maybe raise a bit of money and it fails, you're not really in that worse a spot. You might have gotten
not at all,
especially if you raised money. You kind of lost somebody else's money, but they'll live. But I mean, when it's a service business, so much of it is based on receivables and being able to invoice for work and being able to sell and finish projects and all that stuff. So, cash flow, I don't think I'd be amazed if there was an agency out there, no matter how big or small, that didn't deal with cash flow issues.
Yeah, agency
yeah,
owners
there's
tell me
no
that
way.
agency owners tell me that cash flow is their line of credit. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and that dries up quick too.
It does.
You know what I mean? Like, you look at it, and so there's this weird thing that happens, and it's more common than just me. And I think a lot of people get in that is that, you'll get to a point where there's, I don't know, $250,000 in your bank account, which to the typical person, is
You're rich.
Yeah, it's like you're good. You know what I mean? And when you're looking at if you're looking at an agency or really any business at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what does $250,000 actually do? It's like not really much. We do about $60,000 to $80,000 of expenses a month, so we're gonna get like 3 or 4 months and we're out of cash.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's happened to me like time and time again. Like we'll get $250,000 in the bank account, and it's like, all right, well, like things are good, and like 2 months later, if there's not continually, it's essentially just this one big beast that you always continually have to feed. And if you're not creating a residual business, you're essentially at some point you just won't have enough energy to keep going.
I'm not feeling too good right now. I'm having a flashback. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I was talking about a year and a half ago. I was at the HPX Digital Conference here, and I was talking to John Lax from Tehan and Lax. And they're, I'm sure you know who they are, and they're a pretty notable agency, which surprisingly just got bought by Facebook, acqui-hired, really.
Nice.
Kind of interesting. So they're.
I don't think acqui-hired works ever. Like I don't understand why companies try to do it. But anyways, that's a totally different topic for a totally different day.
Well, yeah, I mean it's interesting because Tehan and Lax has a good reputation for great design work and amazing blog and all that stuff, and the fact that they just they're going to work at Facebook now is kind of interesting.
At some point, you just simply don't have enough energy. You know what I mean? Be for the same business. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that I think you always have enough energy, but the fact is that as an entrepreneur, our entire psyche, if you're running an agency, or if anyone's in an agency, to be in an agency, you almost got to be entrepreneurial anyways. People that want to work a 9 to 5, if they try to go to an agency, they're going to get fired pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you have to evolve so quickly that if you're not ready to evolve, you're either going to get left behind or simply you're just going to have like a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the amount of people that are going around that are either, have very severe addictions within an agency is extremely high. Why? Because, quite honestly, it's probably one of the most difficult jobs there is. You use 70, 80 hours a week, and if you don't have someone that's really well business minded, you're going to be in debt really quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that was sort of my original point with talking to John Lax, because at least I'll speak for myself. We get kind of starstruck when we talk to people who we think are really successful. And he was doing this talk, I think, called, The Last Thing the World Needs is Another Digital Agency was the name of his talk. And, he said, just me in the circle we were talking with, that basically every agency, no matter how big or small, is 4 months away from bankruptcy. And
Yep.
we were like, well, it's true. I mean, because
Totally.
you have to keep feeding the beast. You have to keep bringing in the clients and not just closing the work, but then pushing through it and invoicing for it. So it's
Big time.
It's a tough business.
And you have so many variables that you can't control, which is why I've always, and I mean, obviously you guys have, gravitated towards, obviously Proposify. Is that how you say it? Proposify?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, cool. I was going around for like months saying contextually wrong.
People call it all kinds of things. Pitchify. Somebody called it Projectify the other day.
No J in it though. It's propose. IFY, man.
Yeah, that's fair. But in those businesses, it's okay. If I have 1,000 customers, it's $18,000 or $180,000 a month in revenue. and you have your fixed costs, and you just kind of go. But in an agency, 1 month, I mean, January has been, December and January for us has been the shittiest months ever. February is going to be huge. And, I think there's those months of like, you're going to lose money, and those months that things are going to be really good. And it takes somebody that really knows money and really knows business to be able to really set an agency to be able to actually make money. But in saying that, it's a lifestyle at the end of the day.
Hey, do you guys ever
so true.
look at the large agencies and think, how the hell do they do with that overhead? I mean, I think even some local agencies here that just have the huge offices and all the employees.
I don't know how M5 does it.
But, a lot of those big guys, too, they have a client like, well, we'll speak locally, in Atlantic Canada anyway. The big agencies usually have, Nova Scotia Tourism or Bell Alliant or some huge client that pays them, $100,000 or more a month. And basically, if they lose the client, they just fire the team that was working on that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's essentially what the business is like. I mean, you can't just have a set team, because if any one client is more than 20% of your revenue, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're bringing in a client right now that's going to be 60% of our revenue last year. And that's scary. Yes, it's a great deal of money, and yes, it's going to be a great project, and it's going to be all kinds of fun, and it's in California, and I'm going to have the time of my life working on it. But
yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly. Because then if that goes sideways, or whatever it would be, or let's say the relationship's 2 or 3 years down the road and the grass looks greener on the other side for them, it's going to hurt. But at the same time, you don't want a bunch of small clients that are just paying you this, that, and everything else, because then you have so many clients that you're going to have a bigger account manager team. So there's this like perfect balance of, I mean, I'm pretty happy. We're up to about $60,000 in residual income on a monthly basis.
Oh.
And which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So we're almost to the point of being able to pay all of our expenses just on the residual, and our goal this year is to essentially do $1.2 million in residual. And I think that's something that people don't think about in the agency at all. They're just very project focused.
Yeah.
And the way that my financial business advisor, which is a huge change in my world, has signified it for me, is your business should be ran by residual income, and your profit should be made by all like the projects.
Yeah.
Like, the cool, someone calls you up and is like, oh wow, that's $1 million project. Well, that should be your profit project. You shouldn't be paying costs from that.
Yeah. I think all agency owners want the residual, but I think a lot just don't know how to get it. I know we struggled with that. We had a few retainer clients, but it wasn't very much. I mean, how do you it's hard to convince a client to pay you every month for something.
So what we did is, for the most part, almost all of our clients had to essentially do a 24-month contract for the work that we do. So even if we do, let's say the website's $40,000. Let's say we're doing a website for $40,000. We'll do it over 24 months. And we'll include like the maintenance cost. We'll host it on our server. All those different types of things.
That's
and so
smart.
they pay 25% up front. So typically it'll cost 40%. Typically you're working on a 50-60% gross margin, and so majority of your cost is put up front. And then every single month you're getting a paycheck, you're getting a check to be able to put against your residual services. And you don't actually have to do a whole lot more, but what it really does, it creates a lot better partnership, and they feel like they can give you a call, hey, I need this done, hey, I need that done. And it's like, okay, perfect. We'll just embed that right into your monthly bill.
And you don't have to come up with a special estimate or proposal for every single little change they want. That's it's just smart.
Yeah, and that way too is that, okay, so $40,000 is, I don't know, X per month. And they say, okay, well, listen, we want to do this, and it's $4,000. Maybe the client's going to balk at $4,000, but if it's only an extra $150 a month, they don't even care about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, with those, like, that's how I'm building Infinitus, because I want to have, by 2017, I want to have, $5 million in residual income, so that I know that, okay, for this amount, this is fixed, and then we, can scale up and scale down for the rest of the projects. So it's not about a retainer, because retainers you just can't sell. It just doesn't make any sense. But when it comes to, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this piece of work, and it may only take us 3 months, but you're going to pay for it over 12 or 24. And then you can typically increase the price by 10, 20% because you're doing that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting way of doing business, and it gets you away from that kind of just always trying to get projects.
I wish we had done that. But,
like it.
There's something else there too where in addition to the financial stability that sort of business arrangement brings, is I would think that it would also improve the quality of the work, because when you're building a website that you've got 3 months to build, and you're getting, let's say you're charging $20,000, we'll just say, once you get into that hairy sort of launch period where you don't really know, you think the project's done, the client doesn't really think the project's done because there's more.
You're
stuff
trying to get the
want.
last 25% payment.
Exactly, and the work suffers because you're just trying to, you run out of billable hours, and at the end of the day, like the first time you launch anything, it's going to be the worst. It's going to just get better and better over time as you keep tweaking it. It just goes like that for everything.
And the relationship becomes better because there's more of a partnership. It feels more like a partnership than, okay, I'm going to contract you to do this.
Yeah.
And this way it's, we do, at minimum every 3 months, we sit down with every single client and we go through how their website's doing, go through the usability, go through what we think can be improved and that type of thing. And depending on, how big that client is, we have some retainers that, the client's paying us, $40,000, $50,000 for the year for maintenance and just support and that type of thing. And that's a little bit of a higher range. But it allows a lot of ability for, upselling opportunities or just seeing opportunities within the business. And you would miss that because typically, let's say if you're just a digital agency and you don't, do online campaigns and these types of things, you don't have a longer partnership with them. You do the website and then you don't talk for 6 months, and it's kind of awkward because it's like, okay, well, you got this website there, and whenever they have a problem, they're only ever contacting you when they have problems. Mm-hmm. Like, you're never ever contacting them to add value constantly after the fact. And what this does is, every single month I call up every single one of, our clients and say, hey, listen, just want to see how everything's going, blah, blah, blah. And because they're still paying money, that makes sense. If I was just calling them up every once a month and they weren't paying any money and there wasn't any money coming off of their credit card, they'd be like, oh, why is this guy calling me?
Yeah.
And so it allows you to develop these amazing relationships and connections that allow you to also have a lot higher level adequacy within your agency, because your clients are going, when someone says, hey, listen, I need this done, it's like, listen, Scott is the best person I know for this. Here's his phone number, give him a call right away. And that has happened a lot more since we moved to a model of billing in that way and just structuring it in that way.
Hey, Scott.
And yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but on that same wave, I mean, beyond word of mouth and upselling with your existing clients, maybe share with our viewers or our listeners here on how are you attracting new customers? Is there a process that you use? Are you going to trade shows? I know you don't. I know you drew a line in the sand like we did, and you don't deal with RFPs. But what are some of the things that you're doing to get new clients?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, this is a majority referral and connection based, which is where my book kind of came from. The Connections That Count book that just came out back in January.
Yeah, we want to talk about that too.
Yeah, for sure, and we can get into that in a minute. So, the whole concept of that is I brought people out to lunch and dinner and essentially just connected strangers, and in doing so, it's it probably contributed about half of our revenue last year, and it'll probably contribute 3/4 of our revenue in the next year. And it's not the fact that you're pitching or anything else. It's just the fact that when you're a connector, and when you're always giving value to, I call it value marketing, when you're always giving value to other people, at the end of the day, you're always going to get value back, because it's just a law of, I'll say, humans. When someone feels like they've gotten value from you, they're going to refer you. They're going to do things that they wouldn't do if they just, they just knew you and knew what you did. You know what I mean? So definitely not trade shows, definitely not RFPs. The only time I'll do an RFP, we're doing one RFP right now, and I was personally invited by the CEO that I have a great relationship with, and which means I'm going to get it. Yeah. They just have to do an RFP because that's their process. Probably shouldn't say that, but that.
Can you give names?
No, definitely not. But for the RFPs, I mean the whole process of RFPs. Why I don't reply to them is that they are set up that way. They are set up for relationships. I've done it. I've seen it. You get an RFP and you're like, this is very specific, and then you're like, there's probably only 2 or 3 agencies in all of Atlantic Canada that could supply what they're looking for, and then you're like, you know what, this was written for somebody.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. I think it really comes down to connecting with people and having them know what your bit of brilliance is, or your simply it comes down to trust. You know what? Yeah. Like trust is reliability plus intimacy plus what you can deliver.
Yeah.
And the most important part of that is intimacy. So if you can create intimate connections with people, right? Yeah, exactly. Like that is like, for example, if you have a client, I'll give you let's say a client and you win via RFP, you go in, you have no connection, no nothing, whatever. If things like go sideways, it's not like you can just go in there and be like, yeah, sorry guys, we screwed up and we're going to make it better. Like they're probably going to fire you. But if you have a really good intimate connection with the owner of a company, and that's how you got the project, and they trust you and they know, and you are out front with them saying, hey, listen, this is what happened internally, this is what we're doing to fix it, it'll never happen again, and you have my word on that, and then things are back to normal. And that's where intimacy plays in. Yeah. I think trade shows are bullshit. I don't know why we're still doing them in 2015. I think that for us, our podcast definitely has worked. We've definitely gotten a lot of being the authority in the market from that. Our weekly email has done his wonders, and we do weekly emails that says nothing about us ever. We're always telling stories of just simple business advice, marketing advice, these different types of things, but they're not like the 5 top tips for this or the 10 top tips for that. None of this shit. It's real like stories of being vulnerable, because people bond with vulnerability. Nobody wants to know how well you're doing. They want to know that, you know what, December was a shitty month and we lost $45,000, and this is what you should do not to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Transparency is so appealing to people.
Transparency, I mean, the other side of it is really interesting, because transparency is something I've never been good at. Up until last year, and
yeah, I was gonna say you're pretty transparent in your Facebook posts and emails, and
very I don't post anything online unless I will go and cry in the shower about it after.
in cutoff shorts.
Oh yeah, no, like honest to God, when the button that comes up and is like, "Are you sure you want to post?" and I'm like, not really. I don't really want to post this, but thanks for asking. I gotta do it anyways.
Yeah.
Just like, being vulnerable is probably the most attractive trait there is. You know what I mean? Like, just owning up to, this didn't go the way that we wanted it to, and this failed. And failure just really means, in my terms, that something went a different way than we expected it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's in terms of marketing methods, it's not networking, it's connecting, and it's understanding people. You know what I mean? Like, when's the last time you knew who your clients, what their kids' name were, or what their favorite band was, or what's their favorite TV show, or like who are they? You know what I mean? Like, where are you going to find your client on a Friday night? Are they going to be out partying, or are they going to be home with family? I'm betting most people don't know.
That's kind of the mark of a good salesperson too, really, because that's something, Kevin, you've always been really good at that I haven't been as good at, is just being really interested in people and wanting to kind of learn about, who their kids are and what their favorite sports team is and all that stuff. And it seems trivial, but once you get that relationship with people, then they trust you.
You should get Joey Coleman on this show. Joey Coleman is like the expert when it comes to this stuff. Like, he lives and breathes, and he was actually an agency owner as well. Not anymore, but he got out of it, thankfully. And he he has this basically the 8-step kind of sales process, right from the day that the person signs a contract right up to the point of I can never say that word, advocacy. I was in speech therapy for 6 years and I still can't say that.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. So I mean, anyways, he has this great kind of step-by-step format of how to make, clients love you, and it all comes down to vulnerability, transparency, and intimacy. And I think you do that, and you're going to have amazing clients. And secondarily, you're going to have more work than you can, as much work as you really want to do.
Yeah.
So that's our secret sauce, and there really is no secret there. It's you just be connected to people, actually care about people, figure out what you can do for the universe instead of what the universe can do for you, and success comes after that pretty quickly.
And you build connections that count, which brings us to a book.
That was a good. That was a good segue.
I'm trying to learn how to be a good host. So I'm trying to learn my segues. But you wrote a book that just launched really this week, didn't it?
Yeah, it launched on Tuesday. I was pretty happy. It went number 1 in the pre-order, which was insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I was not expecting that, and in doing so. Leading up, the reason I wrote that book is back earlier last year, I kind of pondered the question, how many people would actually show up to my funeral? Which I don't know how many people actually honestly care. And I don't know how much it really matters. Probably nothing because you're dead by the time that happens.
It just got really heavy in here.
And, I was just thinking about it. I was like, 10 people would show up. Like, I've never been one to be really friends with a whole lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people, but I was never really connected to them.
Yeah.
And then I got, introduced to You Never Eat Alone by Keith, which is a great book. And, essentially what I took is I can't say I came up with the concept because it's not really true. But I start bringing people out for lunches and dinners, 6, 7, 8 people lunches, 8 to 12 person dinners. And I since done about 110 of these right across North America. I did one on my birthday down in Miami. I've done New York, Nashville, Vancouver, Toronto, bunches of other places. I think there's 15 places so far, and later this year is going to probably even be way more than that. But anyways, what I would do, I would just honest to God, strangers, and bring them out to lunch that I thought had similarities and thought would be kind of good to meet with each other. And the 4th or 5th lunch I did, there was an angel investor there, and there was somebody that was in town from Vegas, and connected them, and an investment deal happened.
Oh, wow.
And a $250,000 investment deal happened 3 weeks after because I connected them. They basically handshook it over lunch, and that ended up being I think a $60,000 or $70,000 client for us. And who else are they going to go to but the person who connected them? And I've just gotten so much joy and so much it's literally going to your own mini seminar of getting motivated every single week. And so I do these absolutely everywhere I go, and it just turned into this huge thing, and people just kept on asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? In reality, it's really simple, but I ended up just writing the book, which is only 70 pages or so, which I don't really even consider myself an author at that point. But anyways.
Well, I've got my copy on pre-order, and I'm looking forward to reading it. And if people want to buy the book, where can they go?
TheConnectionBook.com. Yeah, I had to think for a second. TheConnectionBook.com, or on it's on Amazon Kindle, and it's actually there's also a soft copy as well, a real copy, real physical one, which is kind of cool. And I think I'm actually getting mine today. I haven't even seen the actual real one, so I think it's being ordered. I think it's being delivered today.
That's going to be a good moment to just smell that hot off the press, eh?
Man, you know what? It's one of those things that. I failed. I got 19% on my grade 11 English. I think it was midterm or final exam, one of it. And my entire life, I've had all these learning disabilities and everything else, and your entire life being told that you're never going to write anything, and you're you're never going to be able to write this, and just getting made fun of because I can't get 2 and 2 or there and there, or all those types of things, and then actually being able to put out a book, even though it's only 70 pages. Like there's just a level of proudness of being able to say that, hey, you know what, I actually stuck with something and I did it, because it's doing a book isn't that hard. It's just at the end of the day, it's just like you have the momentum or just determination to get it done, because almost everybody has 2 or 3 books in their head. They just never ever take the time, and they never take they don't have that determination.
I'm sure we could talk for hours. You're a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. But yeah, we're probably gonna have to say goodbye. But I want to thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I absolutely love what you're doing. If it wasn't the fact that we only submit 1 or 2 page proposals, we'd use the software. But
it's okay.
But in saying that, I'm looking forward to seeing this launch. And if anyone wants to reach out via the podcast, you can get in contact with me over at my website, scottoldford.com. And I love talking to new and interesting people, even more so if they're in Atlantic Canada, because
gotta represent.
We're all great. Exactly, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the future if you'd like. And
and Scott, when you're in Halifax again, let's grab a beer.
Definitely, that you can count on that for sure. All right, guys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, see ya.
See you later. Okay. What do you think of that?
That was great. Again, great to reconnect with Scott. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's accomplished a lot in 23 years. Kind of hate him.
Yeah, try being my age.
The problem is we recorded this too early today.
Yeah.
We actually haven't been drinking.
No, just Red Bull. Just Red Bull. Because we're tired, so.
I think this was a great interview, and we're looking forward to doing it next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, hope you're drinking.
See you.